I want you to communicate to me, what does it mean to be intentional?
Jim is a master salesperson, and in this video, he shares about what it looks like to become a goal-achieving pro, why steps are important, and what you can do right now to move toward becoming a master in sales. Stay tuned. I know you're going to enjoy this episode.
How you can be the greatest salesperson on the planet.
So, Jim, I know something you and I both really value is communication and strategy. I see these play out in every conversation we have. I see these play out in the marketing I do. I see these play out in our rethink sales conversations. But how do they look in a sales process? How does clear communication and strategy? So I guess asking you those questions one at a time. We've touched on communication in previous episodes, the importance of listening, but let's take that a step deeper into what does good communication in sales look like? And then how does that pair with clear strategy to help you increase your sales? I think this is, I believe that 5 to 10 words could totally change the way somebody approaches the language, the communication they use in their sales. And so
Okay.
speak to that. What have you seen in communicating well in sales? How do you frame? How do you think about how you communicate, and how does that change the impact that you have in your sales?
Okay, so before I answer that question, I'm going to throw you a curveball, and I want to be very
Yeah.
clear that I had no idea that you were going to ask me that question, and secondly, you have no idea what I'm going to
Yes.
ask you right now. So
Right.
this is really going to be an interesting conversation. So let's talk communication, right? And so I want to ask you this direct question. I want you
Yeah.
to communicate to me, what does it mean to be intentional?
Well, it means to plan and have a path forward. Like there's a purpose to it. You're planning to do something, right? So if I'm intentional about spending time with my wife, I've made a plan to do it, right? So we have a plan this weekend to have a weekend without the kids, hopefully, as long as one of them doesn't continue to stay sick. But there's an intentionality to that. There's a purpose. There's a planning process of, okay, a week ago I called, my wife's parents and said, "Hey, this is what we're planning on doing. Are you able to help us out with this?" Right. And then this whole week, we've been structuring our week around making sure we have time together this weekend. So there's an intentionality in which we're planning just that aspect of our lives. And then there's a communication process of I'm continually communicating with several different people to make it happen. Right. So to
Yeah.
me, intentionality means, I think, really focused purpose. Right.
Yeah, and that's a great answer. And so, but I want to unpack that a little more. And there's a
Mhm.
reason. There's a method to my madness this morning, and hopefully, and the way you explain it is excellent. However, how does that relate to the audience at right this
Mhm.
moment? Like, what does that mean to them, right? And so,
Right.
I want to unpack that a little further. So, my next question, unrehearsed, is: so how can I be intentional if I don't have a goal?
Um, that's a good question. I don't really know how, because if you don't have a goal, then you don't know what you're shooting towards and you're going to miss it every time, right? Because
Well,
you
you're gonna
don't
hit
know what you're
no,
aiming for.
actually, no, you're gonna hit it every time. You'll hit the no goal. I mean, you'll hit that. Oh, how'd you do?
Mhm.
"Oh, I did great. I didn't hit my goal. Well, how'd that happen? Well, I don't know what my goal is. So yeah, you hit it. You hit the no goal, right? And so,
Mhm.
um, but the question being, how can you be intentional when you don't have a goal? The answer is you can't. What are you intending on doing? It's back to the example I use often is
Mhm.
you and I are in the car. We pull up to the intersection. I say, Derek, where do you want to go? You said, I really don't know. Well, left or right doesn't matter, does it?
Mhm.
Left or right doesn't matter. Let's not forget that this is all about the goal achiever community at large and how do we achieve goals. And so we can't have an intention if we don't have a goal. And so, Napoleon Hill tells us this repeatedly in the great book Think and Grow Rich. He tells us that you have to be very clear, very concise, very definite. And probably not using exactly the right words he used, but the point is that there's got to be some sense of definiteness and exactness and specificness specificality to this goal. Okay. So that's the first step. If we're going to be intentional, we have to be intentional about having a goal. So what is the goal, right? And so that starts to materialize the intention once we figure out what that goal is. Okay. And so we have the goal. Let's assume Derek has the goal. And you just described it. You want to spend
Mhm.
special time with your wife. This is a great goal, right? So now From there, we have to seek expert counsel to figure out what are the steps that we need to do to get to that goal. So how are we going to be intentional? So we have a goal, right? But how can we be intentional around that goal if we don't have any sense of steps? If we don't have the map quest that says right, left, straight, back up, you went the wrong way.
Mhm.
That's the goal, and the steps create the intentionality. So, I was
Yes.
before we, went live here, I was explaining to you about adaptogens. So you can see that I'm very, very clear on what my goal is. And my goal, I've made it very clear to the world, is 122 healthy, happy, terrific, relaxing years. And so as I research that goal, there's different things that I can do to increase my probability of hitting that goal. And to be clear, this is a if I said this was a 1 in a billion chance, in other words, 122 is a 1 in a billion chance, that would be an exaggeration, okay? Because it's
Mhm.
probably way worse than that. I mean, it's only one person in the history of civilization that we know of has done that. And if it was 10 that have done that, which I don't believe it is, but let's say it is 10, or let's say it's 100. There's 8 billion people on the planet right now today. And in the whole history, I mean, who knows what that number would be if we looked at all the people that lived on this planet since the beginning of people living on this planet. It's probably, I mean, it could be a trillion, right? And so only one person has done that, or 10 or 100. So it's like it's even worse odds than 1 in a billion. But nevertheless, can't I at least try, right? So that's my belief. Does that, because I have this goal of 122 healthy, happy, terrific, relaxing years, does that mean, oh, geez, I just have to drink my coffee and I'm going to hit it? Of course, it doesn't mean that. But what can I
Yeah.
do to give myself the best probability? So speaking to back to intentionality, so I have a goal, 122 healthy, happy, terrific, relaxing years. And now, what are the steps that I need to take to move in that direction? So I seek expert counsel, and I've been studying these adaptogens as an example. I've been studying physical movement as an example, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So now I have this ability to get up in the morning, and I actually have a box, and it's just a regular cardboard box that has all my stuff
Hmm.
in it relative to how I'm going to intentionally make my cup of coffee today. And I call it my adaptogenic coffee. And so I have specific ingredients that are in the box. And it's very simple. It's not like I'm any particular genius. Open up the bag. It says put a half a teaspoon of this in there. Boom.
Mhm.
The second bag, put a quarter teaspoon in. Boom. Put some MCT on. Boom. And I just do all that. Then I have a frother. I mix it all up, but I'm doing this intentionally. It's not like I have to really think about it, right? And so the goal and this expert counsel and the steps creates the intentionality. And so and again, I had no idea what you were going to ask me, but I had to thought in my mind about, what does it mean to be intentional? And so once we get past the goal, once we get past the steps, then all we got to do is just write those steps down, and we need to just do the steps. Okay. And so that's the intentionality. So it's not what people think it is. It's like the goal is not the issue. It's the steps. And I can't stress that enough. It's the steps. Once we get the steps, then we just follow the steps. That's the intentionality,
Mhm.
not the goal,
Mhm.
not the expert counsel, the steps. What turned it around for me at the Jim Shorkey Family Auto Group was, I could say, well, it was Mr. Hamilton, but it really wasn't. It was the steps. It was that list of 10 things that he gave me. And all I had to do was just do those steps. And it turns out that it worked. And so, because I could see it working, I kept seeking expert counsel, talked to Elazar, a couple more steps. Talked to Chrysler Financial, a few more steps. Talked to GMAC, a few more steps. Talked to my accountant, a few more steps. And I had this list of steps, and all I did was focus on the steps. My intentionality was not the goal, it was the steps. And I want you to think about that, because now you're asking me this question, which I would like you to repeat, just so I can be very clear in my answer. But if
Mhm.
I don't have a goal, if I don't have, and by the way, I neglected to mention my reason why that makes me cry. That's obviously imperative. But so I have to have a goal. I have to have a reason why that makes me cry.